Welcome to the Top Texas Lawyers Podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the law firm of Abercrombie and Sanchez, PLLC. You can find us on the internet at astxlegal.com or by calling 1-888-981-7509. Your hosts are Bryan Abercrombie and Sanchez. Bryan has been practicing law for 18 years and is board certified by the Texas Board of Legal Specialization in the area of family law. Sam has been practicing for 13 years, is licensed in both Texas and Florida, and is a certified mediator. This podcast is for informational purposes only, and all views are the opinion of the hosts. It is not designed to provide legal advice for your particular legal matter, and it should not replace the advice of competent counsel. Welcome, and we hope you enjoy the Top Texas Lawyers Podcast. Good morning, and welcome to the 2021 version of the Top Texas Lawyers Podcast. Bringing it back to you 80s style, my friend.
I love it. Still living that era, brother. Still living that era.
A little bit of White Snake.
Yep. Tawny, can't go wrong there.
No.
Go to the car, hair blowing, teenagers.
Oh, those were the days, my friend. Anyway, welcome to another year. Congratulations are in order, I hear. How was your Christmas, my friend?
It was good. I had a great holiday. Was able to convince my fiance to be a blushing bride, so that was pretty awesome. Yeah.
Congratulations. That's awesome. And she's obviously a fantastic person. Well, as are you. And so, I wish you many years of happiness, and I couldn't be more happy for you.
Well, thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Other than that, brother, just, eating well, packing on the COVID pounds, doing a little expanding.
Yeah, we all are, unfortunately. Getting wider, not taller, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm going to get those expanded britches and, those collar expanders. I can still use
I've
the clothes
started on the new eating plan, so I'm, trying to cut off some of those COVID pounds. And the oatmeal has never tasted better. It's never tasted better.
Well, it's a new year, new gear, right? Everybody's going to have some resolutions. Everybody wants to start it off in a much better way than 2021. So.
Yes, I can still taste the oatmeal right now. Anyway, that's neither here nor there, but let's talk a little bit about celebrity divorces. There's been a few. Obviously, we've touched on a number of them over the past year, but there's been some stuff on the B list, it looks like. I know you're going to find this as an incredible shock, but Bachelor Nation was rocked when Evan and Carly Bass, with their, decided to divorce. They've got 2 small children. It's shocking to me that people who meet on a television reality show, they end up getting divorced. I mean,
well,
yeah, right?
I mean, especially because they're so well vetted. After you go through 30 women, you figure like you've kind of narrowed it down. It's going to be good. So, but
in all fairness to this couple, they seem like a sweet couple, and they seem like they had it going on, and I think they met on one of the ancillary Bachelor shows. I'm not sure which one, Bachelor in Paradise, I think, or something like that. And so it's always sad when a couple breaks up. But I got a quote recently. Julianne Hough and Chuck Wick split up, and my favorite thing about this one was the quote by Chuck Hick when he says, "The shit hit the fan" before they broke up. Thank you, Captain Obvious. Clearly, the shit hit the fan.
You think?
Otherwise, yeah.
She's a high stepper, I'm sure it was hard to keep time with her steps. So he's like, yeah, it got crazy.
And then the Kelly Clarkson divorce kind of just gets crazier and crazier. You're talking allegations of fraud now, and all kinds of litigation going on there. That's going to be probably years and millions of dollars in litigation, if I had to guess.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and that really kind of, ties into really what we're going to talk about today, I think, Bryan, is, everybody in this new COVID era is trying to figure out how, one, to get into court, because COVID has the lines backed up, not only to get vaccinated, but, also to get into the courtroom.
Sure. On any number of cases. I mean, you're everything from your parking ticket to your divorce, to your civil case, to your criminal case. They're all backed
Absolutely.
up.
All of them are backed up. And so what people have really started to look at and explore and has become much more in vogue, I think, in the season is mediation. And we're going to kind of touch on that process, which I think is a great topic to kick off the new year for people to kind of hear about and consider as they go forward in whatever.
Yeah, and mediation, and where I practice down here in Houston and in the Woodlands, mediation is required. It's required in almost every case in almost every court before you go to a temporary orders hearing or before you go to a final trial. I mean, the courts really, really want you trying to do your best to resolve these things outside of the courtroom, and oftentimes, especially when your parents, or even just trying to resolve a property case, I think mediation is helpful because it can really save the dollars, and it can really save the heartache, and and just the acrimony and fighting that goes on if you end up in a court battle.
Yeah, it's substantially less expensive too. I mean, what I always try to tell clients when they're considering whether it's civil litigation or we're talking family law or we're talking even in probate cases, is the fact that you go in with the ability, one, to play outside the parameters of the tight box the law creates for the courtroom. Judges are very tied to what can and can't happen under the parameters of evidence. Those rules are extremely complicated and difficult sometimes to get in things. They also are very limited by the results that they can give. The law is very clear in most cases about what can or can't happen in the courtroom at the conclusion of a case. And so when you look at mediation, you can be extremely flexible and creative in solutions for both parties. Whether you're a big insurance company or you're just a husband and wife trying to figure out what we're going to do with our stuff. So it's a really great option to consider as you want to try to figure out how do we address the legal issues that are in front of us in a case.
Right, because I mean, you're obviously, like my old boss used to say, you're one of the two leading experts on your case in your life. So it allows you to to get somewhere where you possibly could get everything resolved without having a lengthy and expensive court battle, and it allows you to come up with a creative solution. I mean, because courts typically have a kind of a defined box where they want to try to keep stuff, because this is a lot of courts are like, this is what the legislature has told me that where I can decide a case, and I'm going to try to stay in that box as much as possible. Sometimes they don't, but in most instances, you and I both know that they probably are, at least to a large extent. So mediation allows you, if you have a unique relationship, like one's a fighter pilot and the other one's a fireman, or I had a case one time where one was a pilot and the other one was an EMT, and their schedules were never going to mesh, so we had to come up with a creative solution, so that they both had good co-parenting time. So I mean, it's a way to be creative, is my point.
No, absolutely. And the cool part about mediation is I think a lot of people think that mediation is really only something that can be a complete resolution of a case, and that's not true. Just like you said, now obviously, Florida is a little different. They still use mediation usually in advance of final trial, but like they do have a requirement in some courts to attend mediation in advance of temporary orders hearings. But the cool part about it is you can settle part issues, and it really kind of narrows things. So let's say you're going into litigation for whatever the case is, and there's 10 issues that are at play in your matter. Well, you may be able to settle 8 of the 10. So going to trial on the remaining 2 is substantially, one, less expensive and more targeted. You're able to really kind of narrow the issues for both the judge and your client and the opposing side as to what's going on, instead of having to really, because, I would love to tell clients that, when you get to court, it's like TV. You get as much time as you want. Judges are like, hey, I've got like the next 2 weeks open. Why don't you just go ahead and tell me everything that's going on in your life? But you and I, Bryan, we know that that's not true. Most of the time, you're going to get a very little snapshot of that judge's time.
If you need one day, you're going to get 3 hours.
Exactly.
If you need a week, you're going to get 3 days. That's how it works.
Exactly. And it's never enough time to tell the whole story. So it's much better if you can narrow those issues in mediation, whatever stage you're going into. And if you just so happen to be able to work out the whole thing, well, fantastic. You didn't go through that huge expensive trial that you and I both know can go up into, the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yes. And then, like I said, it allows you, I mean, even the simplest thing with mediation is it allows you to be part of the solution. So you're less likely to go back to court for a modification if you were part of the original discussion and the original decision, and you have some stake in the outcome. I mean, that's one thing that I can't stress enough to clients. If you have some say so, a judge can hand down a ruling. Judge is never going to know you. Judge is never going to know your kids. Judge is never going to, never going to tuck your kids in at night. The judge is never going to know anything about you, really, other than what they hear in that short window of time that you get in front of them. So, aren't you better off coming to a decision? Your kids, your life, your property, everything about yourself typically. And aren't you a better person to make that decision? I mean, and I've always told clients, you get an outcome, you get a stake in the outcome, you get some skin in the game, and you have some, And excuse me, excuse me, couples are less likely to go back to court, numerous times if they have, a stake in the outcome, and if they've worked hard and come to a resolution. I've been in mediations that have lasted 2 days, and I've been in mediations that have lasted, 25 minutes. So you know, it's worth a shot, and most courts are going to make you take the shot. And like I said, put your best foot forward.
Yeah, and I agree wholeheartedly. The other piece of that too is I think, what we usually talk to clients about is making the selection of a mediator becomes critical to really understanding the issues that are at play in your case. Because every mediator kind of approaches cases in a different fashion, right? We've all got our own style. Whether it's that we're going to approach it in a very direct fashion, whether we're very flexible, how we're used to dealing with very difficult, individuals, how we maneuver individuals closer to the middle to try to reach a settlement. Knowing and understanding who your mediator is and their kind of like their skill set is really important as a litigator. You and I both know, Bryan, that a lot of time is spent before we make an election about who we're going to go mediate with. And I think that's an important part that every client, every person who's considering mediation should contemplate. Talk to your lawyer or counsel and say, hey, why are you suggesting these 3 mediators as potential options? Or if you see it from the other side, do we really need to kind of do a little background if you don't know them to just figure out like what is their style and does it mesh with me? Because that can really affect the outcome.
I think oftentimes you want to have a mediator who's skilled in family law because they're going to know the courts, they're going to know the judges, they're going to know how the process works. I mean, there's a lot of mediators out there. There's a lot of mediators out there that didn't even go to law school. And I always think that kind of, just, I don't know if this is personal bias, but I've never had a lot of luck with mediators that are not lawyers, number one, and number two, don't know a lot about family law because it's just its own world. And you just don't ever do well, in my opinion, when you have a mediator that doesn't know a lot about family law or hasn't practiced in the area of divorce work.
Oh, without a doubt, Bryan, because you get lost in the weeds, right? If you don't control the process as a mediator, as a certified mediator myself, I would tell you that, if you don't control the process, if you don't control the conversation, everybody can get tied up on issues that are really non-important or issues that don't really ultimately decide the meaty issues that need to be determined at mediation. If you're going to get hung up on whether or not, somebody has grandma's pictures when you're trying to divide a $2.5 million estate, emotional issues like that can derail something that you could possibly have reached an agreement on that was the financial pieces of it. Now, it doesn't mean that grandma's pictures aren't important. They are. But right. You need to really kind of prioritize the issues because once you resolve big issues, a lot of times the smaller issues will very easily kind of resolve because people have moved more towards the other side, giving, taking, making a good compromise for a good solution.
Yeah, and I would also say that a mediation, kind of how the process works is you go into a mediation. Let's talk about a general civil litigation type of mediation. In civil litigation, you're dealing with a breach of contract issue. You're dealing with a workplace injury or an auto accident. A lot of times they'll have a joint caucus where both parties sit in the same room around the same conference table, and each side kind of states their position, and then each side goes into a separate room, and then they have the mediation and try to get, because a lot of times we're dealing with the business dispute and you're dealing with less emotional issues. I can tell you that in a family law mediation, the two parties probably never need to see each other during the day. One party goes to their room, the other party goes to their room. Every time I've ever had a joint caucus session in a mediation in a family law case, it has derailed the mediation by at least half a day. Because to your point before, everything always goes to, kind of the emotional zone as opposed to the settlement zone. Everything immediately goes to the emotional zone because these two people are getting a divorce. So when you hit to the emotional zone, you're talking about grandma's pictures or who broke the who broke the car or who never listens to who and all that kind of stuff. So that's why you don't want to have you've got to kind of change the rules. And I apologize if you hear the pitter patter of little feet. I've got kids here at the house until tomorrow when school starts back up. So if you hear anything,
dude, it's the holidays, man. That's what makes it great. I love the pitter patter of little kids, man. So yeah, you'll miss it when they're gone.
Right, but but yeah, so we have the kids running around and all kinds of calamity. It's like Thunderdome around here. Two-man enter, one-man lead.
Well, and I would tell you, Bryan, like something to keep in mind too about mediation as if clients and individuals are contemplating it is really look at, what's in front of you time frame wise, because I think a lot of part that can really put a lot of pressure on people is that they try to push mediation to way too late in their case. Because what ends up happening is, one, you've had a tremendous amount of expense, which sometimes is absolutely necessary. You have a larger, complicated estate or issues that are presented, and you need to have a lot of information so that you can make a proper settlement. But if you don't, then don't push it off to the very end to where you feel like, hey, I have to make a deal or I have to go to trial. Because if you do that, what you're going to end up doing is a lot of times rushing the deal, and then you come out and you don't feel like you had an opportunity to really make a conscious decision at mediation because you felt like it was the only thing that was available to you. So, really kind of plan it out in your case. Do it as, we call it our litigation, our litigation strategy. Bryan and I will sit down and really kind of map out a case and say, hey, from inception, here's the issues that we know at play. These are the pieces of information that we're going to want or need in order to properly assess what the best result is at mediation for a client, because we want to get them in that good delta where they feel good. You're not going to get everything that you want. If you did that, phenomenal. But most mediations don't work out that way. Everybody walks out a little pissed off.
In real life, you're probably going to walk out a little upset, but it's something you can live with. If that happens on both sides of the table, then it's probably a fair settlement, is what they always say.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, you kind of have to wait until the vine gets ripe with the fruit, right, in order to get the mediation accomplished, because too early it'll fail, too late it'll fail, and you want to get right there in that kind of that time frame where you're gonna be able to get that settlement.
And the big piece of it too is clients always ask me, well, we go to mediation, well, what if they want to crawfish on the deal? Well, that's a great part of mediation, is that when you go to mediation, at least depending on where you're at, it's usually irrevocable and binding, meaning somebody can't wake up the next day and say, hey, I want to crawfish and I don't like the deal, and it's off. That's not the way it works. It's done. Which is a great feeling in litigation to know that, hey, if we make a deal today, it's done, other than the ancillary things that may have to come after, final review of a drafted order or some ancillary documents. But that's a big piece to know that it's over. Right.
And you can move on with your life and start making plans and, all of that kind of stuff. And it like you said, it provides a lot of peace because, sometimes there are some difficult things said in a mediation session, but they're not said to your face. And it allows, especially two parents, it allows them to try to work together going forward so that they're not, constantly at each other's throats. And sometimes that mediation helps that process to where they can actually carve out a co-parenting relationship where both parents can kind of be the parents instead of, harboring on, well, she said in court that I was, a deadbeat dad. And he said I was, sleeping with half the country club, all that kind of stuff just leaves a lingering scar on a marriage that you just can't ever get rid of. Whereas in a mediation, if you're just telling the mediator that, the mediator is going to kind of selectively tell what the other room, what's going on. So, you're allowed to vent a little bit to the mediator. In most cases, most good mediators will let you kind of have a little bit of venting and, kind of get that stuff off your chest, but it doesn't necessarily have to be said to the other side. And then it allows you to, kind of move forward with that other person, because let's face it, if you have kids together, you're going to have a relationship with the other person no matter what happens.
Yep, that's true. Well, and a big piece of it too, so like along those same terms, the cool part about mediation is, let's say people always want to know, what can't I say in mediation? It's not trial. And so mediators, you have that level of confidentiality on both sides, meaning that you can disclose all kinds of information at mediation that can't be used if the mediation were to fail at going forward to trial. And that's a huge advantage. As a mediator,
the mediator can never be called as a witness. The mediator, nothing the mediator, is nothing that's revealed to the mediator could use in the other room unless you give the mediator express permission to tell the other side what you have. So there's a lot of good, but the mediator, who typically is a lawyer, is going to be able to evaluate the evidence and say, yeah, that's a piece of evidence that's pretty damaging. So we're going to have to address it, or not. So that's a crucial piece. This confidentiality of the process and the informalness of the process are two really, really helpful things that allow you to do a lot of different things. that help you
Yeah.
get your case solved.
Yeah, for sure. Couldn't agree more. I think more and more, not just high profile. It used to be just high profile divorces, high wealth divorces were using mediation, but now it's really any kind of case. Whether you just are, we were just married, we don't have a lot of property, we don't have children, but we want to get this resolved very quickly. Or, we have, $10 million estates and 6 kids and, property all over the state and businesses and stock. Either way, mediation is an extremely powerful and useful tool that I would encourage everybody to consider and contemplate in the process that they're in.
So along those same lines, we got couple of things to talk about, a couple of additional things to talk about. One is an announcement of where we're going as a firm, and the other is just some helpful tidbits. Let's start out with the helpful tidbits. Many practitioners know, many lawyers know that the Supreme Court of Texas has changed many of the civil discovery rules starting on January the 1st of this year. So there is to say that little changes are little is not doing it justice. They're monumental changes, and they're the kind of changes that if you don't know what you're doing, could get you hurt. But what without going into a lot of nuanced detail about boring everybody with code sections and different things like that. I mean, that's stuff for lawyers to know, but not necessarily for the layperson. But basically, it requires a lot more disclosure up front of property, assets. You have to, when you meet with your divorce attorney, you're going to have to probably come up very, very quickly with tax returns, deeds, bank account information, retirement account information. So that's all going to be stuff that's exchanged on the front side of a divorce case now, as opposed to the old days when you do formal discovery and exchange inventories and different things like that. A lot of that information is going to now be done on the front side. You're going to be disclosing a lot more information on the front side. So when you meet with your divorce attorney, whoever that person is, be ready that you're going to get a lot of questions asked to you on the front side. The plus side of that is it may help get some of these cases resolved faster, but the downside of it is, hey, what do I get? Because I don't even necessarily know what all my issues are. So what all do I need to provide? But generally speaking, it's going to be about 2 years worth of bank statements, statements from any financial institution, deeds, retirement information, 2 years of tax returns, pay stubs, and for insurance information. That's going to be like the stuff you're going to need on the outset. So I would say if you're contemplating meeting with a divorce attorney, I would say start getting that stuff, within arm's reach, or start getting a plan together about getting that stuff together, because it is going to become relevant. Now, cases that were filed before the end of the year are under the old discovery rules, but cases now filed in 2021 are all under the new discovery.
Yeah, and that's really important, because obviously you and I both know as trial attorneys, if you don't disclose it, a lot of times it can cause you later on in a case, if it's going to be litigated, to have substantial problems in whether or not you can actually use it. Yeah.
That's one of the penalties. If you don't disclose it, you can't use it. That's a pretty substantial that's a substantial new penalty that's going to be on these things. So it's one of those things that you really need to sit down with your attorney and go over and make sure you have all the stuff, get all the issues out on the table, because it's going to help you, it's going to help your attorney. I mean, that's just helpful advice. If you're going through a divorce, you want to get the most bang for your buck, and you want to go ahead and get all that information as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and these are tremendously helpful anyways. I mean, like we were talking about mediation, so these rules really play to what we were kind of talking about earlier in the podcast, which is that having to get all that information so that you can be prepared to actually make a solid deal is important. So it is beneficial to the mediation process as well, because getting all these documents, getting those disclosures is going to help you hopefully be able to advance the case a little faster. Now, we still have the cooling period in Texas, so you still got that 60-day waiting period, but if you can get everything very quickly exchanged and to mediation, you can
but tell me I'm wrong here. I mean, in the old days, by old days I mean like 2019 and 2020. No, I mean, trying to resolve a case on the very first mediation is a lot like playing No Limit Texas Hold'em, because you haven't done discovery yet. You don't know what cards the other side's holding, so you're holding your deck of cards or your 5 cards, and you're trying to some of the stuff that's out on the table there, but you don't know what the other side has completely. And you're trying to cut a deal with, sometimes 3/4 of the information, half the information, it's a lot like a high stakes poker game, unfortunately. So this is going to eliminate a lot of that, I think. And so I think, there are some parts that I kind of disagree with it, but obviously I don't have the final say. But there are
we'll
some
get you on the
things
Supreme Court soon enough, Bryan.
there are some things on there that I feel are going to be very, very, very helpful, and they're going to help cut down on a lot of the acrimony, and then also help get some of these cases resolved faster. So overall, I think they're probably a good thing, and they probably are long overdue, because I know in federal court a lot of times there's initial disclosures that are required that parties have to do. So I think initial disclosures now are probably long overdue in these cases.
Yeah. So hopefully it's a move forward. I guess we'll see. Time will tell.
All right. So the other exciting bit of information, I'll let you share that, Sam.
Yeah, so as a firm, we decided that we're going to go ahead and start conducting mediations for parties. So both Bryan and I, obviously Bryan's board certified, I'm a certified mediator. We've been in family law for a tremendous amount of time, decades together. And so we're going to launch that as a firm, that service. So if you're considering or contemplating mediation and you have a case, we'd be happy to assist you. Reach out to our offices and see what dates of availability we have, and we'd be happy to assist you in trying to mediate your case.
Yeah, we're on the Instagram, we're on the Facebook, we're online, www.astxlegal.com. We're having a landing page. It may be set up now. I think it's pretty close to being set up, where you can look at our mediation dates and when we're available to do mediations. But we'd be happy to help you, try to solve your family law case and get you some kind of a workable solution. But Sam and I, it has been decades we've been working together, hasn't it? It's been officially decades. We've been together a long time, and we know a thing or two about like on the Farmers commercial, we've known a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two, right? But no, we've seen just about every type of case, in family law that you can think of, from high stakes custody to high stakes property to low stakes everything to no attorneys, mediation. So we can help you, and we feel we wouldn't put this out there if we didn't feel very strongly that we could provide some kind of positive benefit for people trying to going through this process, because divorces are a hellish process, and it's emotionally taxing. You put on weight, you lose sleep.
It's true.
You have breakdowns. I mean, it's a tough. Obviously, when your family's breaking up, it's a tough thing to go through. And we like to, as much as we possibly can, we like to try to help people get through that.
Yeah, without a doubt. We'll also be looking forward to seeing us in other markets as well. We'll be opening offices in the Waco area. We'll also be opening offices in North Austin, Round Rock. So, we'll have some different areas that we'll be able to come and assist individuals who might need our assistance as well.
And Sam, you're heading up to the north side, aren't you?
I am. So the Fort Worth office is going to move to a little bit more of the north metroplex area. We'll still have the availability of helping people, obviously, in the central downtown Fort Worth area. But our main office is going to relocate to the North Fort Worth, the Heritage Trace, and there's just kind of a great area that we're going to be in, and we look forward to kind of helping that community as well.
And also in Denton County, we can help in Denton County as well. That allows us Denton, Wise County, Tarrant County. That helps us get in a lot of different counties.
Yeah, there's a lot of highway there, so we'll be able to kind of get to you wherever we need you.
Yeah, and in Houston, we're obviously still available all over Houston. So we'll happy to look at your cases, and happy to look at you, and happy to talk to you about whatever you got going on. So how do they get a hold of you, Sam?
So you can hit me up. Obviously, our website, you can contact me there. Email is ssanchez@astxlegal.com. You can call me directly at our office, which is 817-914-5470, or the direct office number as well. Let me get you that. Is 469-844-7181. That's our main number. We also have an 800 number for across the state of Texas, and that is 888-981-7509.
And for me, my email is babercrombie@astxlegal.com. Obviously, you can always contact us via our website at www.astxlegal.com. My phone number is 281-374-4741. and I'm in the Woodlands, so I'm pretty easy to reach as well. And if you can't reach Sam, you can always reach me, and if you can't reach me, you can always reach Sam. So we
Absolutely.
practice with
But
practice all over.
Yep, we're Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid practice style, man. If you can't get one of us, you'll get the other one.
All right, man. So it was great to talk to you. Congratulations again. We're gonna have we're gonna be doing this podcast a little bit more regularly on a weekly basis going forward. Next week, we're probably going to talk about divorce cases dealing with children with special needs, and I'm working on lining it up, but I think we might have a special guest for us. Lined up on this next podcast who can talk specifically about having a child with special needs and kind of what that entails and how difficult it is, because that's a factor that comes up in a lot of, just the stress alone of having a child that has special needs can lead to, unfortunately, the downfall of many marriages. And learning how to co-parent with that person is also a trick in and of itself, because special needs cases are unfortunately more of a prevalent thing in our society, which there is life after a divorce with a special needs child that can be workable and can be a workable relationship, but you've got to know what you're getting into on the front side, I think.
Agreed. Looks for a great topic. So
all right, my man, well, have a great rest of your week, and thanks for the time.
All right, best to everybody. See you guys soon.
All right, take care.
Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoyed the Top Texas Lawyers podcast. If you would like a consultation with either Bryan or Sam, please call 1-888-981-7509 or visit us on the web at astxlegal.com. Once again, that's astxlegal.com. Thank you very much.